This is Football at 4.
I really got to credit Coach Sirianni, the way he leads his team. He emphasizes connecting, being teammates, growing together. And when you got love for a team, you got love for your brothers, offense, defense, everybody's together. I mean, anything's possible. You just put your body on the line. You fight for your brothers, and we got a tight team here.
All right, welcome back. 97.3 ESPN. Ryan Rothstein, Nick Earnshaw, Pete Giordano filling in for Mike Gill on a Victory Monday. It's a great feeling after the Eagles just beat the brakes off of the Washington Commanders. You feel bad for Joshua Harris today, don't you?
No.
Not one bit.
No, you don't. Screw that guy. Feels good. It's actually added to the joy of today for me.
I was waiting for them to pan to him on television yesterday.
I didn't see him at all.
Nah.
And, hey, Sixers play the Lakers at home tomorrow night. It's a TNT game. Maybe we'll see him courtside.
Maybe.
Possibly.
And everything's all good. You
Yeah.
know?
Maybe, come back to the good side.
Yeah.
Start showing your Philly love a little bit there, Joshua. As Geoff Mosher is joining us. Do we have Mosher officially? Because I know he was at the airport. He's currently going through TSA as they do their annual trip down to the Senior Bowl. No Senior Bowl insight and content just yet today, though, folks. We have plenty of birds to recap. We'll get Mosher's thoughts on all of it, as there's just so much to get to. Eagles and the Chiefs. It's exactly the matchup, personally, that I wanted. I know you guys pretty much feel the same. Buffalo would have been cool, but
I think if you break it down position by position, you're going to give the edge to the Eagles. Quarterback, obviously, you go Mahomes. Mm-hmm. Coach, probably, obviously Andy Reid. Mm-hmm. But other than that, man, tight end, I guess, is debatable, but
Kelsey's taking a step back.
Kelsey has taken a step back, and we see how comfortable Jalen Hurts. You mentioned it earlier. That's his safety blanket. So
I'd lean Travis, but just for the respect factor. Yep. But Goddard's right there.
Yeah.
So kicker, Jake Elliott, his struggles, whatever. It's a dome. But again, other than those three debatable spots, you're going to go Eagles.
Absolutely. Especially the way this defense is played. Like the defense, you give the edge to the Eagles in almost every category. And we talked about Orion Burks, and you almost feel like, I'll speak for myself, I almost feel like you can just plug and play guys at this point because they're so good on that side of the ball. I'm not taking away anything from Burks. I think he's done a phenomenal job filling in for Nakobe Dean. But they're so talented, it's like you're setting guys up to make plays. That's my point.
And at this point of the season, it's next man up. You only got one game left. So
yeah,
I was a little. You had every right to be worried when he took over for Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean's been fantastic all year. He's called plays for the defense all year.
Right.
That's a big loss, and for him to step up and step into that role, and really you haven't noticed that Nakobe Dean's been gone. I hate to say it like that,
that's true.
But it's true. He's been great filling in. He had that veteran experience. He stepped up when it matters, and they've just plugged him in, and he's fit right into this defense. And it's just you can feel it. It's such a tight-knit group on all sides of the ball.
Yeah, you heard that soundbite coming into this segment, and you hear so many cliches from this team, whether it's Nick Sirianni, Jalen, right, or any of them. But they're true. Like, they're all true.
Yeah.
Like, at one point, I was hearing all of that, and I'm like, all right, enough with the Google, cliche motivational.
Don't you love when Jalen has an Instagram caption for you?
Awesome.
He has one every press conference.
I posted a video where it's just like 1 minute of Jalen saying those quotes.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah. It's awesome, though.
Standard
I loved
is the
it.
Standard.
Yeah.
Money is nice. Championships are better.
I had a purpose before you had an opinion.
Oh, that's the best one. That is the best one. I don't care what anyone says.
That's the best one.
He said that in the Kansas City Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last time, in 2022.
Yeah, and then he was like, I know y'all like that one.
Do you think he writes them down in like a little notebook? He has them, and he just kind of puts them out there when he wants to, when he feels like it?
I think he has them all scotch taped to the mirror in his bathroom, It's just to get himself ready. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he has.
We make light of it, but it's
he's living by it.
He's living by it, and they're in the Super Bowl because of it.
And once again, I've been critical of Nick Sirianni, but all this cliche stuff that he says, the proof's in the pudding here, boys. Like what this team's been able to accomplish particularly under Nick Sirianni, it's all time. Just look at the stats, look at what they've been able to do, and now they're one win away from really putting an exclamation point on all of it. As we welcome in Geoff Mosher now, he successfully got through TSA. That was a little bit iffy at one point. I don't know. I think it was plus 200 for him to get through. But
is your flight on time, Mosher?
Yeah.
Well, that would be plus 750
Oh, man. Well, hey, man, we appreciate you still making time for us while you're in the middle of traveling. Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
So much to get to. I don't know how much of the conversation you heard that we were just having before you jumped on, but I'll start with Nick Sirianni with you. I know I've asked you about him over the last couple of weeks while we've been filling in. Got the win yesterday. Got it in the best way possible. I don't think any of us could have predicted it going the way it did. 55 points. Defense, brilliant as they've been. Offense, arguably their best performance. Made excellent plays in the passing game when they needed to. Saquon was Saquon. Shipley got some love. Goddard, A.J. Brown, Devontae with a couple of real nice catches, right? Like, how do you look at the job that Sirianni has done now that we're talking about the Eagles winning that game?
Look, I think there's one thing that's really clear when you listen to what the players say and you watch how they react, and it's that they play for him. They appreciate his coaching style, and it's not just rah-rah. I'm Nick Sirianni. I have my slogans. Let's follow it. I mean, it's been detailed how he connects with his players and reaches them in ways probably other coaches couldn't or wouldn't even try. And I think before you even get to X's and O's, right, there are some really smart coordinators and coaches in this league who failed as head coaches because they couldn't be that guy. They were not connective tissue type of guys. Nick Sirianni is. And so before you even talk about the X's and O's, you need to know, do the players buy in? Do they come to work every day and really believe in what the head coach is saying and how he's trying to have that trickle down? You know, and I think that's the start. That is the important part of it all, because we saw with Chip Kelly, a guy who's smart, but players gave up on him, and then it all fell apart. And he's a Philadelphia example, but there's examples like that all over the NFL. So it really starts with his connection to the players and the players showing up with that sort of, and I hate to borrow this Penn State James Franklin approach, but they similarly talk about 1-0 each week. We just stay focused, task at hand. We don't get too high. We don't get too low. And you kind of saw that in most of the playoff celebrations until yesterday. They obviously let loose when you win the NFC Championship, but they had a pretty business-like reaction after beating the Packers and then after beating the Rams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Talking with Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds, Football at 4. So many things that I want to ask you that are coming to mind, but before Nick and PG jump in for a few, I want to go back to our conversation from Thursday, Mosher, because I remember you bringing up and us talking about the offensive line and Landon Dickerson and, you know, Landon going back to center, Cam Jurgens, and how that could impact things. You know, they got through that game. It didn't really impact things, but it was a little bit shaky. I want your thoughts on, if you can recall our convo from Thursday, what you saw yesterday, and tie it into how that could potentially impact the game, if at all, in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't know you were going with that, Ryan, because when we talked on Thursday, there was also something else that I mentioned that you really got to watch for
the fake
in a
punt
game of that magnitude. Yeah, I said you got to watch for the unexpected stuff, right?
Yep.
And sure enough, it was there. And I would even put into that boat the Eagles going for it on fourth down, having been a pretty conservative offense, and then striking the 31-yarder to A.J. Brown. That's not unexpected like a trick play, but the way the Eagles have coached the game, that was a little interesting for that moment. So, yeah, definitely that. And then, look, I mean, the one thing you can say about the Eagles' offensive line, aside from the fact that how dominant they are, how tough they are, the Stoutland U and all that stuff, is that they absolutely feel a sense of ownership to each other and to the offense. You saw how proud they were, right, for Saquon Barkley hitting the 2,000-mile mark, how they considered it an achievement not just for him but for them as well. So it is not surprising at all that, you know, Cam Jurgens unable to go, watches Landon Dickerson out there. Dickerson hasn't played center since college. He's giving it everything he's got. He gets hurt. And the funny thing is, I thought those guys were going to fist fight on the sideline in the second quarter about which one was lesser injured to go in there and try to play.
That was great.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, that's how competitive they are. And, man, if you saw, I'm sure you guys saw the video of Cam Jurgens walking down the tunnel after the game. I mean, he looks like the way my grandfather used to look when he was walking after hip surgery. It's not good, but he's got 2 weeks. Landon Dickerson will have 2 weeks. It's impossible to know right now what the injury report will look like when they start practicing. You know that they'll give the veterans, and even Jurgens is not necessarily a veteran, they'll give him the opportunity to rest up at least this week, and then we'll see what happens the week after when they travel. You know, the really interesting thing from an injury standpoint, guys, is Kenny Gainwell suffering a concussion because they will have to fly out to New Orleans next week. And depending on whether or not he's through the protocol, and getting on a plane certainly is part of that thing, or at least passing the test before you do, he may have to fly in separately or miss some practice time next week if that's the case. I mean, I don't know. I'm not speculating. I'm just saying he has a concussion, and nowadays we see fewer players getting back the week after because there are lingering days to get through the protocol.
Hey, Mosher, it's Nick. Thanks for jumping on with us. I have to ask you, kind of going back towards the beginning of the year and the end of last year, there was all those reports about the relationship of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. I mean, what does a win like yesterday do for their relationship and how it's developed over the course of their Eagle careers?
I will tell you, Pete, that I think that Jalen Hurts is a smart guy, and he definitely uses some intentional phrasing at times that makes you wonder exactly what's going on in his head or, you know, in their conversations. After such a great win, you know, to make the point that they finally took the straitjacket off him was kind of interesting. It was them saying that was he saying that he should have been doing this all along? I'm not quite sure what he was trying to get to with that, but obviously when you're winning and things are going well, and you have a guy like Jalen who says, I'm not in it for the stats, that makes it a lot easier because we know that there are players who are in it for the stats, and maybe not overtly, but they get bothered if they don't have the role or responsibility that they want. We see it all the time. So the Eagles are fortunate that Jalen is like that. I mean, and then part of that is also, look, the offense is best when you're running the ball as much as they've had it, because look what Saquon Barkley does when he touches the ball. So Jalen recognizes that, and that's a good thing. And when you're winning, the relationship is a lot easier. You know, if we're talking next November and the Eagles are losing a couple of games in a row, then maybe it becomes something different, but that's for a bridge to cross later.
Geoff, I also tuned into the post-game show yesterday. You, Kaplan, and Checo. You guys were discussing who's been more impactful of a signing. I mean, Mekhi Becton or Zach Bond. I mean, you could just pick either one. They've been very, very helpful. But what does that say about Howie Roseman and finding these guys and plugging them right in, and they're impactful players?
Oh, I mean, it says a lot, not only about Howie, but also the scouting department and the coaching. So let's go through this individually. Mekhi Becton has always been a tackle. He's built like a tackle. And from what we understand, the guy who said we're going to try him at right guard is Jeff Stoutland. Go figure. And he had a big say in that. And from what we understand, not everybody thought that was going to work out real well. And he said, hey, trust me, let me do my job. And they let him do his job, and it's turned out really well. Does Mekhi Becton occasionally struggle in pass blocking as a guard when they, overload his side or they twist inside? Yeah, but I mean, he makes up for that with just amazing run blocking and being so massive and just moving people out of place. So it's been a tremendous success story. And we'll see what happens with him because, who knows how much longer Lane's going to go, a year or two, and maybe you want to move Becton back out to tackle if that's what they want to do. Obviously, he's a free agent coming up, so they'll have to make that decision sooner than later. And same thing with Bond. I mean, we can credit Howie and the personnel department, but when they've signed him, they were very open about the fact that he was a special teams player and an edge rusher, and there was sort of this let's tinker and see what he can do at inside linebacker. Even Vic Fangio has said, we didn't know he was going to be like this. We were just hoping he could play the position. So I guess luck is involved a little bit in that regard too, but I mean, you have to credit the coaching. Bobby King, the inside linebackers coach, who of all the coaches the Eagles have on defense has no connection to Vic, unlike almost all the other position coaches who have been coaching under Vic before. So I think that you look at that and all those components to it. And it's funny because when you hit on two players like that who you don't expect, it sort of takes the mindset away from the two kind of ugly misses in Bryce Huff. Well, the contract, obviously, for Bryce Huff. And then the fact that they thought Devin White was going to be their main linebacker and paid him a lot of money now to not be on the team.
Hey, Moshe, it's PG. I wanted to highlight a sequence for you at the end of the first half. You mentioned that 4th and 5. Sirianni goes for it. They hit the deep route to A.J. Brown for 31 yards. Then they go on to score that touchdown. Washington, they kick off to Washington, but then Washington fumbles on the kickoff. And then Eagles go down in their 2-minute drill and score that touchdown. 3rd and goal, Hurts to A.J. Brown on the right side there. Then the score all of a sudden is 27, and then Washington kicks that cheap field goal. But going into the half, 27-15, was that where the game kind of switched for you and the Eagles kind of just took off?
Yeah, I think that's where I started to think to myself, Washington has now dug itself a hole, because and the hole that might be too big to come out of. Because if you look at the way Washington played offensively, I believe they played the correct way to try to beat the Eagles defense, which is when you're going to see a lot of zone, you have to be patient. You have to work the ball inside the seams, inside the marks to guys like Zach Ertz, like they did, outside the marks in the flats to your running back, Eckler. You have to be able to run the ball a little bit, which they were able to do. You're not going to get 9, 10 explosive pass plays. And Washington was doing that. But the whole point of the Fangio defense, Pete, is that we'll let you do that. We'll give you those voids and zones, and we'll only rush for the most point. But you now have to do that, work the ball down the field, and not turn the ball over. Well, that's hard in the league to do 13, 14, 15 play drives and not turn the ball over against an Eagles defense that hits hard, swarms to the ball. And lately, I don't know, it's like Peanut Tillman just joined the coaching staff. They're punching everything out of people's hands and causing these turnovers themselves. So the formula worked, and that's where really Washington lost the game. And when they fell down like that after the Brown touchdown, I thought, man, it's going to be hard for them to come back without an explosive. And they just weren't able to get an explosive. Too many of them. They got one from McLaurin. But then they kept turning the ball over still after that with the Eckler one.
And Nolan Smith. Talk to us about Nolan Smith. You know, everyone points at the bye week. Everyone talks about the run game, and Jalen Hurts stopped throwing interceptions, and Saquon Barkley took off. But since that bye week, Nolan Smith has also taken off. And BG going down with the torn triceps, that gave Nolan Smith more snaps. But this postseason, Nolan Smith has really just played an incredible brand of football. Talk to us about Nolan Smith and what he brings to the pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, there's a relentless nature to how he plays the position. He was like that at Georgia. He's so athletic. He's so fast off the edge. And he was really learning, last year and the early part of this year, for being sort of an undersized guy, how to be able to channel all that athleticism he has and sort of use your hands, because that was big. He didn't have great hand usage. And then sort of generate some speed to power moves, which he's starting to do as well, too. But like the effort and the relentlessness and the motor, that was always there. So once he started to figure out things that would give him an edge against offensive tackles who could deal with just relentless players, once he started to refine himself, he started to make himself a better overall edge rusher. Now, he still, I think, has a little bit to go, but he's doing an unbelievable job. He's getting better every week, and all the panic that people fairly had when BG went down, because he was their best edge rusher at the time, has settled down over the last 7-8 weeks of the season because of Nolan Smith being able to fill that void and improve on a weekly basis.
Talking with Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by Inside the Birds. Make sure you're following everything Mosher and the crew at Inside the Birds are putting out. Earnshaw mentioned he was locked into their post-game coverage yesterday. They do an outstanding job of everything and all things related to the Birds as they're heading to New Orleans, baby. Moshe will let you run on your way out the door here. Just, 30 seconds or less, however long you want to take. Your quick thought on Chiefs-Eagles.
I think it's going to be an epic matchup. In fact, Andrew DeCecco and I did a little early preview that's up on the platform, on the podcast YouTube channel right now. And I think it's going to be an epic game. I think the Eagles are better from a roster standpoint than even the last time they played, certainly on defense. But the Chiefs may not be better than that team 2 years ago from a personnel standpoint. It's a lot of the same players, a couple of different veterans added in. But when you've won as much as they've won, and you've won the way they've won, all these one-possession games, I think not something crazy in a row in the playoffs, you are putting yourself in a position where there's nothing that's going to shake you. You're not going to be worried, and they don't turn the ball over either. The Eagles have feasted this playoffs on taking takeaways and turning those into points. I don't know that those are going to come like that against the Chiefs. This might be one of those games where whoever has the ball last is going to win. Now the question is, what if the Eagles have the ball last? It's a tie, but you're staring down a 55-yard field goal. That would be the big question.
Yeah. Let's hopefully not have to cross that bridge, but we'll see, man. Listen, we have 2 weeks to talk about it. I'll leave it at that. Geoff Mosher, all your coverage on InsideTheBirds.com. Kind enough to join us while he gets through TSA at the airport. Mosher, we appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, love you guys. Take care.